Greetings, Training for Translators listeners. This is Corinne McKay with episode 15 of the Training for Translators podcast, Ways to Self-Publish Your Writing and Translations. And before we get going, I just wanted to ask, if you enjoy this podcast, are you on the Training for Translators mailing list? I hope so, but if you're not, there's still time. You can still join. Go to trainingfortranslators.com, click the blog link, and in the sidebar of any blog post, you will find the sign up form to just enter your email address, and you will then get my newsletter every Tuesday, along with announcements about online courses and things like that. And speaking of self-publishing, I will take the liberty of mentioning that I myself am publishing a new book. I wrote a book called Getting Started as a Freelance Interpreter. It is, I guess, somewhat like my flagship book, How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator, but it is not general business advice about the language professions. It is a pretty targeted guide to launching a business as an interpreter. It is out June 3rd from Tilt Publishing, and I'm excited about it, and I'll tell you some more about it during this episode. So here we go with this episode's topic, how to self-publish your writing or translations. So I think it goes without saying that most translators like to write, and I actually think lots of interpreters like to write as well, and maybe you have a book inside you that you would like to put out there into the world without going through the whole process of finding a traditional publisher to publish it for you. Maybe you have glossaries of your own that you've developed over the years that you could publish, or maybe you have business how-to ideas, or maybe you'd like to write something about your specialization. I actually think that there is tons of information waiting to be made into books in the language professions. But today we're going to talk about the practicalities of doing that. I have now published 5 self-published books, or 5 real self-published books, 3 editions of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator, a shorter book called Finding and Marketing 2 Translation Agencies, and the book I am just publishing now, Getting Started as a Freelance Interpreter. Plus, I distribute things like PDFs and other information products in other ways. I will say too, this is a whole other topic, but I think another untapped niche in our professions is publishing literary translations of books in the public domain. So you can go on websites such as Project Gutenberg is the one that I think I look at the most, and there's a big difference between something that is free and something that is in the public domain, meaning that it's not subject to copyright, and you can translate it and sell it if you want to. Translate it and publish it and charge money or not. So you do need to make sure that the book that you want to translate is in the public domain, not just free, as in it doesn't cost money. But I actually think that, to be honest, literary translation is not particularly high paying anyway. And so I'm not sure why more people don't publish their own literary translations. Now, there are, in my experience, 5 steps in the self-publishing process. You have to write the book, which most people are going to do either just in plain old Microsoft Word, in Google Docs if they want some sort of portability, or in a tool called Scrivener, which I'll put in the show notes. That's Scrivener. And that is the tool that I would say most professional writers use. Then you're going to need to design the interior, design the cover, publish the book, and market the book. And I also think that regardless of how good of a writer you are, you need to have the book at least proofread by someone besides yourself. Whether you need what editors call developmental editing, meaning the editor giving you suggestions to improve the book's content, kind of depends on your confidence in your own writing abilities. Like, I will say that I have never used a developmental editor because I'm pretty clear about what I want to write about and what people who want to become a translator or interpreter want to read. But I would say many people use developmental editors if they want to write fiction. Definitely something to consider. Let's kick it off here with my favorite general resources. I have two favorite resources on self-publishing. One of them is the website of Joanna Penn. So her last name is Penn. She is in the UK and her business is called The Creative Pen. Joanna Penn herself is a thriller author, but she has self-published something like 45 books. And in that process, she taught herself how to format and publish her own books. I believe that she now uses, paid freelancers to do a lot of the production work, but she started out doing all of her own production work, which for someone who did not start out as, a sort of graphic designer or IT specialist, I think is really impressive. I love DIY people, and I'm always just blown away by Joanna Penn's can-do spirit. So she has a blog and a podcast under the name The Creative Pen, and she talks both about the craft and the process of writing and publishing. She also has an incredibly helpful tools page on her website. So if you go to thecreativepen.com and click tools, she tells you every piece of software that she uses, cover designers that she uses, just everything is there. It's a fantastic resource. And she just seems, I've never met her, but she seems like a really cool person as well. Very friendly and generous person. My second recommendation, which would be mostly toward book marketing, is Dave Chesson's website, which is Kindlepreneur. So it's Kindle like Amazon Kindle, and then preneur like entrepreneur. So admittedly, a lot of his stuff is heavily geared toward people who publish on Amazon Kindle Direct, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit. But I find that he has very easy to digest information, tons of blog posts and videos on really every stage of the self-publishing process, like how to write and edit your manuscript, how to design the interior, how to design the cover if you want to do that stuff yourself. And then I think his is really one of the best self-published author marketing sites that I have seen. So I would check out Kindlepreneur if you are interested in that. Now let's go through three options I would like to talk to you about to actually publish your book. And I think that these days, and I'm saying these days because I self-published my first book in 2006, which now is kind of crazy to think about that it's coming up on the 20th anniversary of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator. So when I first started self-publishing, the only self-publishing that existed before then was what people used to call vanity press publishing, where you had to order, like 500 to 1,000 print copies of your book that would be sort of delivered to your house on a pallet kind of thing, and you had to store them in your basement. And the big revolution in the early 2000s was print on demand. And fun fact for those who are book nerds, the real revolution, the real technological change that allowed print on demand to happen was fast drying glue. The holdback, the roadblock there was the spine glue that is used to hold books together so that you could print the book and then immediately stick it in an envelope without allowing it to dry for some long period of time. When I first started self-publishing, the options were a lot more limited, but these days I think there is such an array of options that it can sometimes be hard to decide. And I think that you want to think ahead of time about, number one, what is your budget? Because I'll spoil the surprise and tell you, I think that these days, the best way to go, if you have the money to do it, is to hire what is called a hybrid publishing service. I used for my new book, Tilt Publishing, TILT, which is the hybrid publishing arm of Lulu, LULU, which is the print-on-demand service that I have used since 2006. And if you go with a hybrid publishing service, really, you don't do any of the production work. You just make the decisions, and they do everything. They have the book proofed. They design the interior. They design the cover. They buy the ISBN for you. They get it into distribution. I mean, honestly, it was like having a contractor build a house for me. I did not swing the hammer one time. I sent them a Word file and it came back as a book, and all I did was make decisions. But of course, that costs money. I paid Tilt $3,700 US, which their base price has since increased to $4,500. And I have seen hybrid publishing services that charge as much as around $8,000 US for that service. So if you are wondering, like when, corporate thought leaders and people like that decide to write a book and they self-publish it, how do they probably do it if they don't have the time or inclination to learn anything about this? Well, that's how. They hire a hybrid publishing service and they pay, I would say, $4,000 to $8,000 for someone else to produce the book for them. But I really think that that is the way to go if you have the money to do it. But let's talk about other options because you also have other purposes. Maybe you want to write something that you don't actually think that many people are going to buy. And you want to do what I would call a minimum viable product at a very low cost. So I think I mentioned in the blog post that really, if you are using a hybrid publishing service, the book should be indistinguishable from a traditionally published book, except that if someone looks up, for me, if someone looks up Tilt Publishing, they're going to see that it's a hybrid service, not a traditional publisher. But when you look at my book, and I'm saying this only because it's true of every book that Tilt Publishing produces, not just mine. When you look at the book, you really cannot tell that it was not published by a traditional publisher. I think my only exception to that is that I am a complete fanatic of the books published by Knopf, Knopf, which I think is like the highest quality publisher out there. And, there are certainly publishers like Knopf that their books are really just a cut above. But I would say that any hybrid publisher should be producing a book that, it looks exactly like traditionally published book. So let's start with what I would call like the bronze option, the sort of minimum viable product option, which is you're going to write or translate the thing that you want to write or translate. You're going to format it well enough that it looks like decent and people are going to want to read that. I mean, you could do that yourself, or you could hire a designer, maybe sort of a virtual assistant type person to do that. And then you need some sort of cover, which again, you could hire a graphic designer, or you could do it yourself in Canva. If we're Canva, a really great online graphic design tool, if we're talking minimum viable product. You are then going to make that into a PDF and you're going to sell it using an instant download service. So the one that I use is eJunkie. That's E-Junkie. There are lots of instant download services out there where you upload the PDF to them. Then you put something like a buy now button on your website and someone buys your PDF and it is instantly delivered to them by eJunkie, so they don't have to wait for you to send it to them. I honestly think it's an underrated option because it lets you just get the thing out there. I have done that for a couple of ebooks and I'm really, really happy with it. I don't use eJunkie anymore because I now have a WooCommerce store on my website. And if you have a WooCommerce store, you can sell digital files directly through your own website. But I'm a big fan of this approach. I'd say the pluses are it's easy and inexpensive. You can focus on writing the content rather than on the publishing process. I would say the minuses are obviously it doesn't look like a real book because it's not a real book, and because it's not distributed anywhere except where you distribute it, that you have to figure out how to market it, right? You got to know like who wants to buy this thing that I wrote or translated. Next up, I would say our sort of silver option would be a self-publishing option with no upfront cost, which for most people is going to be Amazon Kindle Direct, which despite the name does not publish only ebooks. You can publish print books on it as well. This is how I published Finding and Marketing to translation agencies. So in that case, I did have an upfront cost because I hired a cover designer and an interior designer, but Kindle Direct Publishing itself has no upfront cost, and you can upload a Word file and they have a converter that will make it into a publishable format. So here I would say a few things. Number one, the pluses and minuses are pretty obvious. When Amazon says this is simple, they're not kidding. It is a really easy way to get like a quote unquote real book out into the world at a low cost. The minuses would be people publish a lot of junk on Kindle Direct. and AI generated things and stuff like that. And your book might be lumped into that mix. And I would say, no big surprise. If you make a Word file into a book, it looks like, guess what? A Word file made into a book. And I would also say, as someone who is kind of a book snob, the quality of the print books from Kindle Direct is not great. Like the paper is kind of cheap feeling. And, it feels like if you read the book more than once, the spine might crack, things like that. Additionally, there's the whole Amazon factor. I think it is safe to say that most independent authors have kind of a love-hate relationship with Amazon. It's Amazon, it's this behemoth that is put out of business many, many independent bookstores. And now Amazon even bought Goodreads, which was sort of the last place on the internet to review and buy books that was not Amazon. Amazon now bought them. And the reality is, my own books are available on almost any channel you can think of, my own website, independent bookstores, the Apple bookstore, the Kobo store, which is in Canada, and no big surprise, the Amazon sales crush every other channel by far. I've sold about 15,000 copies of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator, and I would venture, I would have to run the numbers to really know, but I would say, probably 12,000 of those were on Amazon. So you can be on Amazon or you can not be on Amazon, but if you're going to avoid Amazon, you need a really, really, really robust plan on how you are going to get people other than friends and family to buy your book. A second option that doesn't cost you anything upfront is a company called Ingram, Ingram, Ingram Spark, which it is less full-featured than Kindle Direct, but it's a similar idea. Except on Ingram Spark, you need to hire your own designers or learn how to do it yourself so that you can upload the finished files to them because they don't do the file conversion for you. Another service that I am planning on using, and this was a recommendation from my friend and colleague JT Hine, is a company called eBook Launch. And they offer an a la carte menu of book design, book editing, and formatting. And I think their ebook formatting is like $100, and they have cover designs from as little as $100. So it's a very affordable option because you can pay for whatever services you want and you just purchase the individual services. So these sort of silver level options are what I did until now. For the first 3 editions of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator, the editing, interior design, cover design were done by some combination of me, my husband, and freelance designers that I hired. And then I use Lulu to publish and distribute the books. And the thing that I would say is I sold 15,000 books that way. So obviously it's a good option. You just have to do a lot of coordination between the various stages of the publishing process. Like my husband actually did the interior design and the cover design for the first edition of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator. And I'm honestly still kind of proud of it. I think it's a really cool, now quite vintage book. And my husband is way more detail oriented than I am, so he did an outstanding job on all of that. But as we all know from battling with, various tech issues, things happened, it was first rejected for distribution because the ISBN barcode was 6 pixels too close to the edge of the cover or something like that. So the nice thing about using the next option I'm going to tell you about is that you are not coordinating any of this. You are only making the decisions. So let's go on to our gold option, which is hiring a hybrid publisher to do all this for you. So my resolution for 2025 was to start trying to publish at least 1 book a year until I run out of ideas. And I said in the blog post, I don't know whether that's going to be in 2026 or 2056. Who knows? I have a lot of big ideas, but I wanted to sort of modernize my research about publishing options because I still believe that even though my books have sold quite well, that I don't think a traditional publisher would be interested. And I think I make a lot more money publishing the book myself. So I had a few factors. Now I do have quite a bit of revenue from my books to sink back into the new book. And an additional nudge was that my longtime independent book designer retired. So I had to look for a new option anyway. And I found Tilt Publishing. So, what hybrid publishers are going to do is they don't work a la carte. You pay them a lump sum, and then they do all of the production work for you, and you keep all of the royalties from the book. So, in the case of Tilt Publishing, they had my book proofread, and I will say, like, I'm pretty picky about proofreading, and I was happy with the quality of the proofreading. They bought the ISBN number for me, they had the cover designed, and I was very happy with the cover. They did the interior layout, they did the ebook formatting, and they set the book up for global distribution, which means it's on, Amazon, Apple Bookstore, Kobo, all of that stuff. It's in the Ingram database, which is what brick and mortar bookstores order from. And then they set up print on demand on Lulu so that I can order my own discounted copies if I want to sell them myself. And for that, I pay about $4 and something. The book is 167 pages, and I pay $4 and something per copy. And so it's quite a good margin. The cover price is $18. And so minus the shipping, I make about a $13 profit selling the books myself. Like I said, I paid them $3,700 US. It's now $4,500. And whether or not you want to go that route, I think really depends on your goals and your book's sales potential. If you're thinking that this is a book that you might sell like a few hundred copies to family and friends, I would not go the hybrid publishing route unless you really just have like $5,000 burning a hole in your pocket. But for me, I would estimate that I've earned about $75,000 in book sales. Now, that's over a long period of time. As I always tell people, I'm not going to quit translating and interpreting and only do that, but it has paid for some nice vacations. And I'm super happy with the whole process with Tilt. It saved me a ton of time and hassle and allowed me to really focus on creating and marketing the book rather than publishing the book. And I am already considering / planning on using Tilt for the 20th anniversary edition of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator. So I hope that these tips are helpful to you if you think you have a book lurking inside of you. This has been the 15th episode of the Training for Translators podcast. I'm Corinne McKay. My website is trainingfortranslators.com. I record the podcast in Audacity using a Shure MV7 Plus microphone, and I host it on Libsyn. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to talk to you in a future episode of Training for Translators.